Okay, welcome back, everyone. Um, I'm going to just give 2 minutes for others to join, then we can continue. Okay, I think we have like 6 persons already, so I guess we can just continue. All right, so now we're talking about having multiple conditions and then checking them with an AND operator, right? But what if we want to use an OR operator where we just need one of them to be true, just one to be true, and then everything becomes true? What's a scenario that this can happen? What's a scenario? I'm thinking. A scenario for this. Okay, let's use what's happening in the country right now. All right. Do you have money? Yes. Do you have cash? No. Can you buy something with that condition? You have money, but it's in the bank. It's not in your hand, right? So 2 conditions. Do you have cash? No. But do you have money in the bank? Yes. Can you buy something? I need an answer.
Well, it depends. It could be yes and no.
Okay. Explain.
Yes. Okay, yes, in the fact that you do a transfer. And then yes, in the sense that you can make a transfer for payment to buy things.
Yeah.
And then no, if the person you're buying from decides not to take transfer, but rather request for cash.
Yeah, so good, right? So now the person is going to, the person is accepting all forms of payment, right? Now, all forms of payment, transfer, POS, whatever, right? But you don't have cash, but you have money in your account. So that means that can transfer to yes, and that can translate to yes, right? And that's where the OR operator comes in. So do you have money as cash or do you have money in your bank, right? Any one of them just needs to be true for you to do your transaction. Any one of them just needs to be true for you to do your transaction. You don't need to have like the both of them to be true. So you have a situation where you have true or, and that's the expression for or. That's the or operator, right? The or operator is a long line. Just do that twice, right? I don't know what the line is called. I'm sorry. But that's the operator. And for my keyboard, it's found on top of the enter key, right? For your keyboard, it could be somewhere else, but it's just a very long line. It's not the exclamation mark, but a very long line, right? So true or false is equal to true. See for and operator, true or false is equal to false because both of them have to be true. But for all operator, just one needs to be true. So how do we do this? False or true equals true. Now false or false equals false, right? Because none of them is true. They are both false. It has to be false. Then true or true equals true. My visual studio is so smart that it's already knowing what I want to type next. That's interesting. All right, now, all right, so I'm just going to use this, right? But what I want to do is false or false.
Sorry, can you let me know the extension that you're using that made an auto?
I'm not so sure, but I am thinking it's this guy, Tab 9 AI Assistant.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, so you could check that out. All right, now, so false or true. equals true, because just one, even if you have 10,000 conditions, right? And just one of those 10,000 conditions is true, and you're using the OR operator, it's going to translate this whole block to be true. I'm going to give you an example. Okay, so 9 not equals 9 and 7 less than 8. As you can see, 9 is not equals 9. This is false. Sorry, 9 is not equals 9. That's true. Wait, what am I saying? This is false rather, because 9 is equals 9. Yeah. Then 7 is less than 8. That is true. So it's translated this whole block to be true. If I change this to 7 is greater than 8, it's going to, as you can see, it has switched, right? It has just shown me that this is what it's going to pick, right? And if I put one more condition and make this 7 equals 7, it will switch back, right? So it has picked just this last one and translated everything to be true. All right. Do we have any questions so far? Someone said transfer. Yes, I haven't actually used cash in the past 2 weeks. I've been transferring. Anyways, any questions so far?
Yes, I do have a question, please.
Go ahead.
Okay, although I didn't really start at the beginning of this class, so I just wanted to know how you came about, did you create files for these basic console.cs project and program.cs?
I created a console application, right? I'm not sure if the command is still there. The command is no longer there. But I would upload the video. I would upload the video on YouTube later today, so you could just watch the video again.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the video is being recorded. Let me see. Did I start the record? Any other question? Yeah, go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I know in JavaScript has this 3-line. You know the equal sign that you use, the 2 equal sign you use. I know in JavaScript they have like 3.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, do we have something like that in C#?
Okay, so
And what does it
you can see my screen. You can see that I just added the third equal sign, and it's saying invalid expression because C# does not recognize this, right? So the thing is, with JavaScript, there is a term called strict comparison, right? So how do I explain this now? I think there is a situation in JavaScript where 0 is equal to false would translate to be true, but then 0 is strict comparison to false would translate to be false. I'm not sure this is how it works, but I'm thinking that I did learn JavaScript a while back, and there is a reason why they do this, right? So you want a situation where you are comparing both the value and the data type, right? And then you use the third equal sign. I'm not teaching JavaScript here, but I'm explaining why they do that in JavaScript. You're comparing both the value and the data type. But then if you're just comparing the value, you use 2 equal sign. But then, and I think that is because JavaScript data types is mostly just var or let or const, and there's no like difference between what that variable is storing. But then with C#, even though we use var in C# or const too sometimes, most times C# already knows the data type from the value, right? So it's not necessary to do like a strict comparison. So C# does not have a third equal sign comparison. It's just 2 equal sign. Does that answer?
Yes. Okay.
All right, great. Any other question? Let's move on to, Oh, there's also another conditional operator that you might want to look into. I'm not going to touch much. I'm not going to touch much on it. I'm just going to write the code. It's called the switch operator. So I'm going to do var. I'm going to do, let me not use var so I don't confuse people yet right now. Int I equals 2 or 4. I'm going to do that. Now I can switch on I, right? Switch on I, and I just say case 4. Then what's going to be my, onto the right line, 4. And break, right? Then I could say case 5. Also the right line 5. Break. Then I could say case, let me just change this to 8. Console dot right line 8. Then break. Then finally I'll just say default. Console dot right line default. So I'm just writing to the console so that we see. It doesn't mean that you have to put that, all these things I'm writing when you're doing your switch operator. Then break. All right, great. So this is the switch, right? It's more like the if, and I also didn't touch something on the if. I'm going to go back to that, but it's more like the if operator. So I'm like, if I is 4, if I is 5, if I is 8, or if I is this, now going to be the else block. I'm saying a comment, kindly share your screen. Can you see my screen? Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Isaac, probably just log out and log back in because my screen is being shared. All right, so in this case, it's going to print 4 in the console. Let me just close this and run this. It's going to print 4, and that's because I is 4. So let's just give it a second, and can you see 4? The yes is from the earlier if statement. If I change this to 8, it's going to print 8 because it's not 4, it's not 5, but it's 8. It's going to print 8, as you can see here. And then if I switch this to like 9, it's going to run through everything and not see 9. So it's going to jump to default, which is like the else block that, okay, if every decision is false, then what's going to happen? It's going to just jump to this default, as you can see. And that is how the switch operator works, or the switch conditional works. So like I said, you could do anything you want to do here. Between this case and break, you could do whatever you want to do. Between this case and break, you could do whatever you want to do. Between this default and break, you could do whatever you want to do. I only just want to write to the console and the same thing. So it's more like this curly brace and this curly brace is what we have between this. So it's more like saying, if 5, do whatever you want to do inside this board, but the curly braces are not visible, more or less, as you can see. So I'm going to now go back to this, right? Because we have like how many different conditions here? 1, 2, 3, and then the else. So if you want to do the same thing for if statement, all you need to do is else if, I can't spell, can you imagine? Right, I'm going to just say else if 9 equals 0. All right, so it's even just giving me this warning, right? Because the code is not reachable. So if I change this to like 9, it's going to say this is not reachable, and it's going to, let me just write this. It's not going to print this as well. So it's going to tell me this is also not reachable. right? So it's, as you can see, it's just saying this is not reachable, this is not reachable, but this is reachable. So I can do as many else if as I want. So if the first conditions is not true, then what's the second condition, or the next condition? What's the next condition, and then what's the last condition, right? Then I could also put conditions inside of each other, right? So like, let me do this, since this is the last one. I'll change this to be true and copy this and put it in here. As you can see, right? So I could put conditions inside of conditions, right? And it will just check, right? So it checked everything and saw that everything is false and comes to the else block, and then it checks this condition and saw that this is true, and then printed this. But if I change this to false, it's not going to print anything at all. Everything is saying that it's not going to reach there. Unreachable code, unreachable code, unreachable code, unreachable code. So basically, that's how that works. All right, moving on. I'm going to just comment out all of this. Now, loops. For loops is like an operation whereby you're repeating something over and over and over again for a stipulated number of times. I say stipulated because you can define the number of times you want that operation to be repeated. And then you could also say you want that operation to be repeated forever until something happens, right? So that is what loops are, right? And there are, in C#, there are about 4 or maybe 5, I can't remember, but I know of 4 types of loop. There is the for loop, there is the do while loop, there is the while loop, and there is the for each loop, right? So all of these loops repeat the same thing, repeat an operation continuously for a stipulated number of times, right? And the syntax, I am going to just write 2 of the syntax. During your course of the week, you can also research for more of the syntax, and I'm just going to write 2. One is for loop. I'm going to explain it in a bit, don't worry. Right? For each loop, so I'm going to explain this with this, and that will just help us to bring okay, let me even do this. Let me make this easy for me. Let me use a loop to add to this loop, and then use a loop to print it out. Let me say, stop with the clues, l.add I, right? And then item in L. Right line. I'm going to explain it in a bit, don't worry. Item. All right. So these are 2 different loops, right? 2 different loops that I want to do a particular function for me. One is a for loop. The other is a for each loop. I'm going to just separate this, put it here. Now, this is called a list. There is a data type called array, and there is another one called a list, right? So what they do is they store values in, like a simple example is your wallet, right? In your wallet, you could store like multiple money inside of it, right? And then when you want to bring it out, you could just bring it out as a bulk and just pick through them, right? And then you could also add into your wallet notes as like they come in, right? So you have like 100 pieces or copies. What's the right word now? Pieces or copies. Anyways, you have 100 pieces or copies of notes of money, and then you want to put it in your wallet. You could just put them as a as a bulk, right? And in that case, you use, if you want to put it as a bulk, in that case, you use a method called add range, but it's giving error because I'm not passing it as a bulk, but you could pass them one after the other. Just pick one note, put in your wallet, another note, put in your wallet, another put in your wallet, and that's what this first method is doing, right? So speaking like the numbers, right? And then passing it into this list. But this is a list like that sounds like, that acts like a wallet that stores numbers, right? And that's line 77. Now line 78 has 3 sections inside of this circle. 3 sections. The first section is the starting points. The second section is the ending points. Now the last section is the steps, right? The starting point, the ending point, and the steps to go between the starting point and the ending point. So now I'm saying I want to start from 0, and I want to stop at where the number is less than 9, right? And the steps is 1, like I want to go 1 step at a time. And I don't know if you're familiar with this operator, I++. That operator, what that operator does is just adds 1 to I, right? So it knows what I is. At this point, I is 0. It knows what I is. It's going to add 1 to I, and I would be 1. And then when it comes back, it's going to add 1 to I, and then it's going to continue like that. And once it does that, once it adds 1 to I, it's going to check if I is less than 9. So once it gets to 9, after adding up to 9, and it gets that I is not less than 9, then it's going to jump out of this code, right? But then once it's true, it's going to enter this block, and it's going to add I to this L. This L is the name given to this list, right? And then I'm going to loop through L with a for each loop and print the items inside of L to the, or write, I keep using print. Print is more of a Python or Java language. Anyways, write to the console the number of items inside of our L list. Let's see this work. I'm going to pull this up a bit. Oh, shoot. Can you see, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 8. And 8 is printed, but 9 is not printed. And that's because our condition says I should be less than 9, right? Exactly. So that's these 2 lists working together, right? I don't know if anybody has a question on what I just did, because I'm trying to, I'm feeling like I'm confusing you guys using the 2 lists, 2 loops together. Does anyone have a question with what I just did?
Hello. No, that list, these things, should I say the style or the way you are? I'm just saying it for the first time. But you know, if I want to,
Which one?
can I just use like the one on line 77?
Okay. So this is like list, right? So you need to check what a list is and how to use it, right? So go ahead. Your question was not done. I'm sorry. You said if you want to.
Okay. So if I just create a kind of like a variable, like a string variable, can I still use it for or the for loop for just to look through the variable?
Depends. I'm not sure. I understand what you're asking, but okay. If I say variable a equals 9, I could do this, I less than a, right? So I'm passing 9 from a to this part. I could do that, and that would work. right? I could also do, well, let me change this to ints rather. I could also do ints I equals 0, and then move this from here and just do this. Or yeah, just int I and say I equals 0, right? So this is me using variables to pass the conditions. I don't know if that's what you're explaining, but yeah, you could do that.
No, okay.
Okay, but then for list, right? So how this works, let me just remove everything here so that I see, I'll try and explain this. How this works is we have like normal variables. We have int I equals 9. So I'm storing an integer in this, right? And this is a normal variable, right? But what if I want to store like a list, like maybe you're creating a software for a class of students, right? And you want to store their scores, right? In one container. In one container, you want to store their scores. If you do this, int I equals 9, 8, 7, like this wouldn't work, right? It wouldn't store these scores like this, I remember. So you have to create like a list of integers, right? And that's what this is, list of integers, right? You could also do the same thing for, let's say you want to store a list of people's names. You could say list of string, and then this would know that, okay, I'm storing strings inside of this list, right? And to do that, I'll do m.add, and then I can say Gabriel, right? And then it knows that I'm storing Gabriel inside this list. And right now, the list have Gabriel inside of it, right? I could also add more things, right? And then I could also check the number of things inside of that list by saying m.count just I don't know, I keep using var. I use var a lot anyways when I'm working. So int I equals, let me remove this, m.counts is going to check the count of items inside of this, and it's going to tell you that there's just one value inside, but then I can add more values inside of it, right? So basically, you should also check the methods that are available in a list or a data type of a list, right? So you should also check that as well, because you would need them as we proceed. All right. Now, classes and objects, right? So you'd also need this as well. I tried to just get some of these basic things. Some of the other things you should find out yourself and then ask questions as we go, right? But I tried to get some of these basic things and touch them in as simple as possible way, so that even if you don't understand them totally before, you should be able to understand them right now. Classes and objects, right? So, oh shoot, we have 10 more minutes. Okay, let me see if I can touch on this for the next 5 minutes. In classes and objects, you can create a new class. This program.cs is a class, right? But you could create a new class. You can create a new class by just saying new class, and I'm going to say details, right? And this is what a class looks like. We have something called a namespace. Yeah, and then we have the class itself inside the namespace and the name of the class, right? And to create a class, what you just need to do is create a namespace and then the access modifier, the class, and then the name of the class, right? What's a namespace? In this code, how do I explain a namespace to the basic of way now? In the basic, most basic way. So namespace is like a library, right? It's like a library. In actual library, right? And in this scenario, it's also a library, right? So this is how .NET differentiates libraries. That's not helpful. That's not helpful. I'm coming in my second. What's the best way to explain this now? Yeah, I think library is the best way, because if I say projects, I could also create like two different libraries, right, in one project, right? So I could say like namespace. I could split this and say namespace basic console 7, and then do like a public class details and create this, right? This namespace and this namespace they are different, and that's why it's allowing me to create two classes with the same name. If I were to do this and put this in this same namespace, it's going to cry and tell me, I don't know why I use the word cry, but it's going to scream at me and tell me that this namespace already contains the definition details, right? So it's like saying that I'm separating these two libraries, right? So everything inside the basic console 7 is unique to itself, and everything inside the basic console is also unique to itself. But then in the .NET space, namespace are only separated in different projects. So there is no use case that will require me to create a different namespace in one project, right? So if I wanted to have like a different project, which we're going to touch in, I think, stage 4, we're going to touch on architectures where you have different projects to differentiate your concerns, right? So we're going to create different projects, and those different projects will have different namespace, and they will be like separate libraries unique to each other, but they can communicate to each other, right? But they will be unique to each other, right? So that's what namespace is, just a library that has like its own unique data in it, right? And then this is just a class, and class can have properties. I'm going to use a shortcut called prop, and I'm going to say this, and then can have another property called, just gonna call this name, right? So to use this class, I have to instantiate it. Instantiating is a class. Okay, let me go back to what a class is in real life scenario. A class is like a baking pan, right? It's like a baking pan that you could use to create multiple bread, right? So a class is just like a template that can be used to create objects in your software, right? So baking pan, bread, molding plates, building blocks. I'm trying to give you real life scenario to be able to understand, right? So from one baking pan, you can get hundreds and thousands of breads. From one molding plate, those stuff that bricklayers use to mold bricks, right? From one molding plate, you can get hundreds and thousands and millions of bricks from it, right? So from this class, I can get different objects, right? And then an object is an instantiated class. Now, this is a class. Let me create an object. Let me come to program.cs. In this place, I can create an object by saying details, which is my data type in this case. And I'll say T, and just call the variable T. So the name of our data type or our variable can be anything, right? So I could say details, and then it just knows that I'm doing that, right? New details. And it's screaming at me because it cannot find details, right? It's looking for details in this class, but it can't find details. And that's because details is somewhere else. So for me to be able to use details, I have to bring in something called a using statement, which is mostly found at the top of your page, right? So I'll say using basic console, I think, right? And that should fix this. And you see my error is going, right? So I'm saying that use this namespace. Then it now knows that, oh, this details is found in basic console dot details, right? Right. So I've just instantiated this class, and this is an object. This details is an object. This details is a class. Let me make this make it different now. A is an object, whereas details is a class, and that's the difference between details and objects. A is the bread, details is the baking pan. A is the brick, and then details is the molding pan or the molding container, right? So that's the difference between A and details. That's the difference between classes and objects. And then I can also instantiate these details to create another one. This time I'm going to call it B. I can create another one and then C. So as you can see, the details is still there, right? The class is still there, but I've just created different different objects from it. And then I could give them their name. I could say ID equals for name equals Gabriel. Yep. Oh, so this is supposed to be a string, not an integer. String, right? And that's why it's complaining for me, right? I could give this another stuff. ID equals 5, name equals EGHOSA, and that's that. And I could also do the same thing for this, right? So I just created 3 different objects from one class, and that's the difference between objects and classes, right? This is not a detailed explanation, so I would like to just entertain questions on objects and classes right now. No, we have 1 minute, 30 seconds. Should we continue this tomorrow? So I do not flood you guys with information. Should we continue this tomorrow? Should we have another class tomorrow?
Well, yes, I guess.
Yeah, because we've touched on a lot of things and there's still like a lot to do, right? So we could have like another 1 hour class tomorrow and then touch on some other things before I give the task for the week. So what do we think?
I think it's okay.
All right.
I think if you just give us
Say that again.
I'm thinking you just give us the topics to read up on.
Okay, you know what?
Instead of having-
It's less than a minute, so I'm going to just start it all over again. Then we'll just do like a roundup. It's not going to be recorded, just a roundup. I'll get your view, probably give you topics to read up on and stuff like that. So just join again one last time.